Welcome to Framework, the podcast that makes the NIST cybersecurity framework practical, engaging, and accessible. Whether you're a cybersecurity professional, business leader, or simply curious about how organizations defend against cyber threats, this series is for you. This podcast is inspired by a comprehensive guide to the NIST Cybersecurity Framework 2.0, a best-selling resource written by cybersecurity expert Dr. Jason Edwards and trusted by professionals worldwide. In each episode, we'll leverage a few insights from Jason's extensive book to dive deep into CSF 2.0, unpacking every function, category, and subcategory with real-world applications you can immediately use. If you're enjoying this episode and want to learn more, head over to cyberauthor.me to grab your copy of the book and access additional resources to enhance your cybersecurity journey. You can also visit baremetalcyber.com, where over 2 million people last year explored expert insights, articles, and practical tools across a wide range of cybersecurity topics. ID.AM-05 Prioritizing Assets by Importance. ID.AM-05 ensures that organizations classify and prioritize their assets based on criticality, ensuring that cybersecurity resources are allocated efficiently to protect high-value systems, applications, and data. This subcategory belongs to the Identify function within the National Institute of Standards and Technology Cybersecurity Framework, version 2.0, emphasizing that effective asset prioritization helps organizations focus security efforts where they are needed most, reducing risk exposure and enhancing incident response capabilities. Without structured asset prioritization, organizations risk treating all assets equally, failing to protect mission-critical systems, and misallocating cybersecurity resources, leading to gaps in risk management. By implementing structured asset prioritization, organizations ensure that business-critical assets receive the highest level of security protections, cybersecurity risks are assessed based on impact, and security controls are applied according to asset importance. A structured approach to asset classification enables organizations to identify their most valuable systems, enforce risk-based security measures, and ensure that incident response planning aligns with asset criticality. Organizations that develop clear asset classification policies, implement risk-based security prioritization models, and integrate asset importance rankings into cybersecurity governance, improve their ability to prevent data breaches, reduce downtime, and strengthen overall cybersecurity resilience. Multiple stakeholders play a role in prioritizing assets by importance. Cybersecurity and IT risk management teams are responsible for defining asset classification frameworks, assessing security risks, and ensuring that critical assets receive the highest level of protection. Business leadership and operational managers ensure that asset prioritization aligns with business continuity planning, ensuring that the most valuable assets remain protected against cyber threats. Compliance and legal teams ensure that asset classification and prioritization align with regulatory cybersecurity mandates, data protection laws, and enterprise security governance models. Asset prioritization is implemented through structured asset classification models, continuous risk assessments, and dynamic security policy enforcement strategies. This includes assigning risk levels to all enterprise assets, ensuring that high-priority systems receive enhanced security controls, and integrating asset classification into incident response planning and cybersecurity governance. Organizations that fail to prioritize assets effectively risk misallocating security resources, leaving mission-critical systems vulnerable, and lacking visibility into which assets require the highest level of protection. Several key terms define asset prioritization and its role in cybersecurity governance. Risk-based asset classification ensures that organizations categorize assets according to their impact on business operations, assigning security priorities accordingly. Mission-critical systems and data protection ensures that high-value assets receive the strongest security protections, reducing exposure to cyber threats. Asset dependency mapping enables organizations to identify interdependencies between assets, ensuring that essential systems remain protected. Regulatory compliance for asset classification mandates that organizations align asset prioritization with cybersecurity laws and compliance frameworks, ensuring legal adherence. Threat modeling for high-value assets ensures that organizations identify, assess, and mitigate cybersecurity risks, targeting their most critical systems Challenges in prioritizing assets by importance often lead to misaligned security policies, ineffective risk mitigation strategies, and failure to allocate cybersecurity resources efficiently. One common issue is lack of a structured asset classification framework, where organizations fail to define clear criteria for ranking asset importance, leading to inconsistent security protections. Another issue is failure to align asset prioritization with cybersecurity incident response planning, where organizations do not integrate asset risk levels into security operations, leading to delayed or ineffective responses to cyber threats targeting mission-critical systems. Some organizations mistakenly believe that all assets should receive equal security protections, without recognizing that cybersecurity resources must be allocated based on business impact to ensure effective risk mitigation. When organizations implement structured asset prioritization, they enhance cybersecurity resilience, improve risk-based security enforcement, and ensure that mission-critical systems remain protected against evolving threats. A structured asset classification framework ensures that cybersecurity resources are allocated efficiently, risk mitigation strategies remain aligned with asset importance, and high-value assets receive enhanced security protections. Organizations that implement structured asset ranking models, enforce risk-based security policies, and integrate asset classification into enterprise cybersecurity governance develop a comprehensive security strategy that strengthens asset resilience and reduces cyber risk exposure proactively. Organizations that fail to prioritize assets by importance face significant cybersecurity, operational, and compliance risks. Without a structured approach to asset classification, businesses risk misallocating security resources, leaving critical systems vulnerable while overprotecting low-impact assets and struggling to respond effectively to cyber threats targeting high-value data or infrastructure. A common issue is failing to differentiate between mission-critical and non-essential assets, where organizations apply uniform security measures instead of risk-based protections, leading to inefficiencies in cybersecurity operations. Another major challenge is not aligning asset prioritization with business continuity planning, where organizations fail to recognize which systems are most essential to business operations, leading to prolonged downtime in the event of a security incident. By implementing structured asset prioritization, organizations ensure that security resources are allocated efficiently, business-critical systems receive heightened protection, and cybersecurity risk management aligns with operational priorities. A well-defined asset classification framework improves security visibility, reduces unnecessary spending on non-critical asset protection, and ensures that threat detection and response strategies focus on high-risk systems. Organizations that deploy automated asset risk assessment tools, enforce structured asset ranking policies, and integrate prioritization models into cybersecurity governance improve their ability to detect, prevent, and mitigate cybersecurity risks efficiently. At the partial tier, organizations lack structured asset prioritization models, leading to inconsistent security enforcement, unmanaged cybersecurity risks, and weak integration of asset importance rankings into cybersecurity decision-making. Asset classification is handled reactively, with organizations only addressing asset prioritization after a cybersecurity incident reveals security gaps. A small business at this level may fail to differentiate between employee workstations and cloud-based financial systems, applying the same security controls to both, leaving critical business data at risk. At the risk-informed tier, organizations begin to develop structured asset classification models, ensuring that high-priority assets are identified and monitored more closely. However, asset prioritization efforts may still be limited, with inconsistent enforcement of security policies across different asset tiers. A mid-size healthcare provider at this level may ensure that electronic health record systems receive enhanced security protections, but fail to apply the same prioritization process to supply chain logistics software, leaving operational dependencies vulnerable. At the repeatable tier, organizations implement a fully structured asset prioritization framework, ensuring that all enterprise assets are ranked according to criticality, security policies are applied consistently, and asset classification remains aligned with business risk management strategies. Asset prioritization governance is formalized, with leadership actively involved in reviewing asset rankings and ensuring that cybersecurity protections align with mission-critical asset classifications. A global financial institution at this stage may require all payment processing platforms, cloud-based banking applications, and financial transaction databases to be assigned the highest security priority, ensuring that cybersecurity protections focus on business-critical operations. At the adaptive tier, organizations employ AI-driven asset classification solutions, predictive cybersecurity risk assessment platforms, and automated security enforcement tools to dynamically adjust asset prioritization models based on evolving cyber threats. Asset security management is fully integrated into enterprise cybersecurity governance, ensuring that security controls, risk assessments, and compliance measures remain aligned with asset criticality in real time. A multinational technology firm at this level may use AI-powered risk analytics to continuously assess asset criticality, adjust security policies dynamically, and enforce real-time threat mitigation measures based on asset importance. Prioritizing assets by importance aligns with multiple controls in the National Institute of Standards and Technology Special Publication 800-53, ensuring that organizations implement structured asset classification frameworks and dynamic cybersecurity risk prioritization models. One key control is RA-2 risk assessment, which requires organizations to identify, assess, and prioritize cybersecurity risks based on asset criticality, ensuring that the most important systems receive heightened security protections. A global logistics provider implementing this control may use risk assessment tools to assign security priority levels to transportation management systems, ensuring that cybersecurity resources focus on protecting essential supply chain infrastructure. Another key control is CP-8 telecommunications services, which mandates that organizations prioritize and protect critical communication networks, ensuring that essential data transmission services remain secure and resilient against cyber threats. A government agency implementing this control may ensure that classified communication networks are assigned the highest security priority, enforcing strict encryption policies and continuous monitoring to prevent unauthorized access. Prioritizing assets by importance also aligns with CA-9 internal system connections, which requires organizations to assess and prioritize cybersecurity protections for interconnected systems, ensuring that high-risk dependencies receive appropriate security measures. This control ensures that organizations identify critical system linkages, enforce risk-based access controls, and mitigate threats associated with asset interdependency. A multinational financial institution implementing this control may prioritize security measures for banking transaction systems, ensuring that interconnected payment processing services receive the highest level of protection to prevent financial fraud and cyber attack. These controls can be adapted based on organizational size, industry, and cybersecurity maturity. A small business may implement basic asset classification policies, ensuring that critical business applications such as financial management software and customer databases receive heightened security protections. A large enterprise may deploy AI-driven asset prioritization tools, automated risk-based security enforcement platforms, and predictive cybersecurity risk modeling solutions to ensure that security resources are allocated dynamically based on asset importance and evolving cyber threats. Organizations in highly regulated industries such as healthcare, finance, and critical infrastructure may require continuous third-party audits of asset prioritization frameworks, legally mandated compliance reporting, and formalized asset classification policies to ensure security governance alignment with regulatory cybersecurity requirements. Auditors assess asset prioritization by reviewing whether organizations have structured, documented, and continuously enforced asset classification frameworks. They evaluate whether organizations implement structured asset ranking models, enforce risk-based cybersecurity policies, and integrate asset prioritization methodologies. If an organization fails to prioritize assets effectively, auditors may issue findings highlighting gaps in asset risk assessment processes, weak enforcement of security resource allocation, and failure to align asset prioritization with enterprise cybersecurity risk management strategies. To verify compliance, auditors seek specific types of evidence. Asset classification reports and structured risk assessment documentation demonstrate that organizations formally define and enforce structured asset prioritization governance models. Risk-based cybersecurity resource allocation records and security policy enforcement reports provide insights into whether organizations proactively prioritize high-value assets and adjust security controls based on criticality assessments. Incident response evaluations related to mission-critical asset breaches and high-risk system security audits show whether organizations effectively track and mitigate cybersecurity risks for their most important systems, ensuring that asset prioritization remains continuously enforced. A compliance success scenario could involve a global energy provider that undergoes an audit and provides evidence that asset prioritization processes are fully integrated into cybersecurity governance, ensuring that high-risk infrastructure, industrial control systems, and operational technology receive the highest level of security protections. Auditors confirm that mission-critical assets are systematically classified, cybersecurity resources are allocated based on asset criticality, and enterprise-wide security policies align with asset importance rankings. In contrast, an organization that fails to implement structured asset classification frameworks, neglects risk-based cybersecurity resource allocation, or lacks formalized asset prioritization governance models may receive audit findings for poor risk management, weak prioritization enforcement, and failure to align cybersecurity protections with high-value asset requirements. Organizations face multiple barriers in ensuring that asset prioritization remains continuous and effective. One major challenge is lack of automation in asset classification, where organizations fail to implement real-time risk assessment tools, leading to outdated or inaccurate asset prioritization. Another challenge is failure to align asset prioritization policies with evolving cyber threats, where organizations do not update asset rankings based on new security risks, increasing exposure to emerging attack vectors. A final challenge is over-reliance on static asset classification models, where organizations apply rigid asset prioritization frameworks instead of dynamically adjusting cybersecurity protections based on real-time risk intelligence. Organizations can overcome these barriers by developing structured asset prioritization frameworks, ensuring that cybersecurity resource allocation remains continuously optimized, and integrating asset risk assessments into enterprise-wide cybersecurity governance strategies. Investing in automated asset classification platforms, predictive cybersecurity risk modeling tools, and AI-driven risk assessment solutions ensures that organizations dynamically assess, monitor, and refine asset prioritization strategies in real time. Standardizing asset prioritization methodologies across departments, subsidiaries, and external business partners ensures that asset security policies are consistently applied, reducing exposure to cybersecurity risks and strengthening enterprise-wide security resilience. By embedding asset prioritization into enterprise cybersecurity governance strategies, organizations enhance risk-based security resource allocation, improve regulatory compliance, and ensure sustainable asset risk management strategies across evolving cybersecurity landscapes. That wraps up today's discussion on framework. Don't stop here. Head over to cyberauthor.me to explore more cybersecurity topics and discover a best-selling book covering NIST and other critical cyber frameworks. Please like, rate, and review this episode on Apple and Spotify. Until next time, remember that knowledge is power.